Well, hello, and welcome to the PGH Writing Command Center for another podcast episode from God Bless Keg Publishing, LLC. And I am Paul John Hausleben of God Bless Keg Publishing, LLC. I am the flagship author, chief photographer, music reviewer, music critic, do everything guy here at God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC. We had a little help from my friends. And some of my friends are gathered here today. One of the friends asked me what the subject of the podcast was this week, and I said it's a rant. So they went under the kitchen table here. I got to try to get them out before. It's okay. I'm going to stay under control. This is not going to be half as bad as what the New York Jets rant was. I promise. Well, it might be bad. But anyway, before we get started here, let's get our little Orphan Annie decoder pins out, because this podcast is proudly sponsored by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, the leader in technical consulting, facilities maintenance, facilities management and operations, as well as property maintenance and management services throughout America. And now, CFG Incorporated is proud to announce a new department, a new initiative headed up by the amazing Mr. Steve McMillan. Steve brings as many years of experience as he manages pre-construction services and estimating for residential development, residential renovations, and light commercial projects for CFG Incorporated. So, before you spend big bucks on a project, let old Steve Aruski check out the contractor scope and price to make sure your hard-earned money is going in exactly the right place. Check them out on the web at www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. That's www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. Many thanks to Lydia, Steve, and Liliana at CFG Incorporated, and Summer the doggy, I can't forget Summer, and Smokey the kitty cat at CFG Incorporated for sponsoring the podcast down there in beautiful Marietta, Georgia. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Yes. So we do have one special announcement here today. Let me get that. Now, I just printed this out just a few minutes before we started recording, and this one comes in from a buddy back home in New Jersey in Passaic County, and it's really awesome. So the Passaic County Surrogate Judge, Zoila Casanova, hope I said that right, in partnership with the New Jersey Bar Association and the Young Lawyers Section, will be providing a special event providing last will and testament for Passaic County veterans and first responders and their spouses, preparing these wills and testaments for free. So that's the Passaic County Surrogates Court, 71 Hamilton Street, room 101 in good old Patterson, New Jersey. I know Hamilton Street very well. It's a special event at Passaic County Police Academy, number 214, figures 214, on Oldham Road in Wayne, New Jersey. It's the 9th of May, 2026, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they will prepare wills and last wills and testaments for free for first responders and Passaic County veterans. Awesome. So it's at no cost, of course. You need to register with the Surrogates Court at www.PassaiCountySurrogate.org, or you can call Chris at area code 973-881-4760, extension 1220. Fantastic event honoring all who have served, and I think that's just fantastic. I love that. So if you have a special event, a charity, a goodwill function that you'd like Paulie to mention here on the podcast, be sure to send it to God Bless the Keg Publishing at gmail.com. Please be cognizant. It's a weekly podcast. Watch your date. Send it to me ahead of time so I can screen it and vet it, and then prepare the text for the podcast. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the person sent that in. Thank you. So the basic premise of this podcast started brewing. I started with this rant, and it would come out in parts and pieces as I assembled it. But it really started back in March, and we had, we had Frankie T on here, and then we had Jeff, the musical wizard. We had the world famous Frankie T. We talked about NHL, and then we had Jeff on with a little rock, progressive rock. And then we had the Easter, and we had all this. But in the background, this rant has been building inside of me, and it's two parts. First of all, one of my pet peeves, and I mentioned this in the Pet Peeve podcast, is season rushing. I just can't stand season rushing. Let the seasons be what the seasons are. And so suddenly on the 26th of March, I was reminded by my buddies back home in New Jersey, and then by my cousin David, world's greatest New York Yankee fan. And I come from a long line of New York Yankee fans. My old man, my grandfather, and David, my cousin David, and I share common grandparents. And our grandfather was one of the world's greatest New York Yankee fans, and passed that down to the rest of us. And I enjoy baseball. It's not my favorite. I'll be honest. Ice hockey's number one. Association football, or what some folks call soccer, particularly European Premier League, etc. It's really association football, or football, is my second favorite. And baseball kind of lands third on the list. And I enjoy the ball games. You know, it's a summer thing. Beer, hot dogs, popcorn, peanuts, Cracker Jack. You know, all that stuff that goes with baseball, 4th of July. And I always thought of baseball as a summer thing. And now, so on the 26th of March, I was reminded that it was opening day of the baseball season, 26th of March, 2026. And I was a little flabbergasted at that. And, you know, opening day, it's not a big spectacle, but it's something that we used to look forward to. My old man would always get some ballpark hot dogs, and we'd cook some dogs, and he'd have a couple beers, and we make a little toast the opening of the baseball season. And now it started on the 26th of March. So this is a two-part rant with the season rushing, and also the way that this ball game was broadcasted is the second part of the rant, because it was only available on a special streaming service. You couldn't just tune into your regular service, whatever you subscribe to, and watch this ball game. It was exclusive to a streaming service that apparently, and I don't know a lot about this stuff, but apparently this streaming service is primarily known for movies, that type of entertainment. And now it's trying to infiltrate into sports. So as Cousin David says, it's all about the Benjamins. But to get back, before we dive into the streaming service issues, and get back to the part one of the rant, is the season rushing. So this was the earliest ever opening day in the history of Major League Baseball. So keep creeping it up, keep expanding the service, keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and let's spawn from late winter all the way to fall now. So pitchers who can't pitch more than 5 innings anyway have to go out there in 30-degree temperatures and throw baseballs and do all this stuff, because they started in the 26th of March. But they started out in San Francisco, Yankees versus Giants. And like I said, earliest ever opening day for baseball. And apparently the folks that I listened on the radio, I have to admit, and they started the ball game at 8 o'clock at night, California time, I get it. But for the working person, I mean, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. So, you know, you start this thing at 8 p.m. And of course, everything's a grand spectacle now. You just can't have a regular ball game. They brought New York City taxi cab out on the baseball field, and a San Francisco Giant cable car, and they have all these ceremonies and all this pomp and circumstance. So by the time the ball game gets underway, you know, I mean, it's the working person just keeps get chiseled and chiseled away at. More money, more taken advantage of, and just the simple things that we used to enjoy get taken away. So I looked it up, and season rushing for me expands to everything. It expands to retail, and I covered this in my pet peeve. You can't 12 seconds after Christmas Day ends and it's Boxing Day, all the Christmas stuff is gone at the retail stores. and it's Valentine's Day. Boof, just like that. It's Valentine's Day. And because I have a heightened sensitivity to this, I paid particular attention this past week here, of after Easter. And sure enough, the local food store here, all the Easter candy, the Easter bunny guys, the chocolate eggs, all those guys are gone. They're in a shopping cart, 50% off in the middle of the aisle. And now it's 4th of July. It's April the 12th, and it's 4th of July. They got flags. They have all kinds of, sugary sweets and the little popper guys and all this stuff. It's 4th of July. This is unbelievable, folks. The Bible warns about this. And I'm not going to preach, but let the seasons be the seasons. So now you got the opening day of the baseball, right? And landscapers are guilty of this. They want to plant flowers. People were coming up to me the other day. Oh, I'm going to put I said, be careful. The last frost date is something you got to pay very close attention to. Don't put your tender plants out, your flowers, your tomatoes, all that stuff. And someday I'll do a gardening podcast. Great love of mine. And I have some formal training in horticulture, and my old man was a great gardener. But at any rate, I warned him. I said, don't be fooled by one day in the 80s. You can waste your money. And sure enough, it went down to 28 degrees. The last frost date in Central Virginia is like the 15th of April, something like that. And back home, it's in May in Jersey. And I used to have, 100 tomato plants, 100 pepper plants, corn, eggplant, you name it. But at any rate, why are you rushing everything? Why are you rushing to get through your life? So now baseball started. I was like, baseball started? We're in the NHL season, and the NHL is my primary sport of interest. Teams are fighting, and you're getting down to the nuts and bolts for playoff positions, and here comes baseball. So at that point in March, you had March Madness going on. You had the NBA. You got the NHL. You have, for me, Premier League soccer. You got the European competitions. The World Cup qualifying was going on. You got the NBA basketball. If you're a golf fan or whatever, the Masters are coming up. All these sports colliding. It used to be hockey is a winter sport. Hockey started, and then hockey ended, and then it was baseball, and you have all these patterns. I mean, the Super Bowl was just in February, and now they're kicking off baseball on the 26th of March. Because they have to squeeze everything in, and everything's got to be a spectacle, and money. I'm starting to feel a lot better, folks. You can get out from under the table. So I looked it up. So in 1982, it appears they rushed to the Major League Baseball, rushed a little bit because they started the season on the 5th of April in 1982, and they had a blizzard. They had a blizzard in the Northeast, so they had to, obviously postpone some games and wait for that to pass. Then I looked back in the 1960s, and it was very consistent, usually the second week of April. So 1966, kind of in the middle of the 60s, whatever, they started the season on the 11th of April in 1966. And now here we are in 2026, and they start the season on the 26th of March. I looked up the Stanley Cup. Philadelphia Flyers won the Stanley Cup in 1974, and it was awarded on the 11th of May in 1974. And some of those series, playoff series and the finals, went a long time. They went to almost the max, 6-7 games during that playoff run. So some of those series were extended. So hypothetically, I looked this up, if most of the series went to the max, and this NHL season is all messed up because of the Olympic break. And don't get me started on why we have the NHL players over there in the Olympics. That's a whole different rant. But I mean, everything gets ruined. I mean, we had one of the greatest sports events of all time when these amateur hockey players for the United States went over in the Miracle on Ice in Lake Placid, and they beat the Red Army of the Soviet Union. And now we got the NHL players going over there. There was something special about a bunch of college kids, about a bunch of amateur hockey players going and taking on, the perennial powerhouse and beating them. We all root for the underdog. And now you got the NHL players going over there. Why do the NHL players have to compete in the Olympics? Why? Why? Do they need the money? That's crazy. Anyway, that's a different rant. So I don't want to digress too much because I could go down a rabbit hole of rants here and scare everybody away. But so if the series go to the max, the Stanley Cup would be awarded on the 21st of June of 2026. So once more, folks, seasons. We don't have the seasons. And maybe that's just me. And maybe it's just a byproduct of the way I like things, but I'm regimented and I like everything to be separated, and I enjoyed. Hockey was during the winter. It's a winter sport, ice, cold. And then you got the Stanley Cup, and then you got the baseball, you got the hot dogs, you got the beer, you got the 4th of July, and then you have the tweener sports. Now, the NFL is a whole different story. So the NFL with their just everything that is going on with the National Football League is, in my opinion, a downhill spiral. So the NFL is probably last on my happy list of watching sports now. And I guess part of that is being a New York Jets fan, which of course is, but everything is, how shall I say, skewed. It's just not the same as it used to be. And everything is put into these grand spectacles and these grand extravaganzas. And I like things simple, and I like things within containers. And that's just the way I am. And now it seems like it's 24/7. All these sports just overrun each other. The schedules are all haphazard. And you got to have, like my cousin David has 3-4 devices going on. He's got to watch the hockey, the baseball. He's got to watch this. It's just crazy now. And you can't enjoy it. So that's the season rushing portion of this rant, is just let the seasons be what the seasons are. Crazy to start on the 26th of March. I listened to the ball game the other day, and Susan Wallman, it was home in the Bronx, Yankee Stadium. She said, you can't even feel your hands out there. You can't even feel your hands out there. It's cold, and baseball's a summer sport, and I get it. It's all about the Benjamins. But so the second part of this rant is the streaming services. So all my buddies back home look forward to the opening day of the Yankees, the baseball season, the Yankees' first game. And apparently it was only available on this one exclusive streaming service. And everybody was in uproar about it because, like I said, this is a streaming service not known for sports, but they're trying to infiltrate into that. And more, you have to have these streaming services in order to enjoy your sports. And like I said, I like things in containers. I'm old-fashioned, and I live in a bygone world, and I get that. But why does everything have to get ruined? Why does everything have to dip into the pocket of the working person? The regular guy, the regular gal that just want to enjoy life, and everybody's struggling to make it. Inflation, gasoline is astronomical, food prices, all this. And folks the ordinary working people don't have disposable income. So now a simple pleasure, just tuning in the ball game and watching the Yankees, has to be taken away too by greed. And it's going to cost you a fortune to subscribe to this and that. And everybody back home couldn't tune in the game unless they had this particular streaming service. And I don't have $1,000, and that's what it would cost. I looked it up with the NFL. $1,000 if you want to watch the Jets and the other games on the streaming services. Well, I'm telling you, I'm not paying $20 to watch the New York Jets. I'm just not doing it. It's a bad product. The Jets stink. Year after year after year. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. So now I'm going to dump all this money that I really don't want to spend and I don't have to watch the New York Jets get destroyed every Sunday? No, I'm not doing it. You have a lousy product. the NFL, and I'm going to get Frankie T on here because we're old time NFL viewers, and you have a lousy product. Nobody knows what's going on with the NFL. It's all about betting. It's all about this sports app, this betting app, blah, blah, da, da, da. And whether or not you believe the games are rigged or the games are skewed or whatever, some of this stuff, once betting gets involved, gets a little wacky. But aside from that, I don't know what the catch is. I don't know what the referees are looking at. Like Brady says, you can call holding on every single play. And it's just a boring, predictable product. Commercials every 2 minutes, and it's all about the Benjamins. So now I'm going to spend $1,000 to stream New York Jets games? No, I'm not doing it. And I looked it up. If I want to watch every Nottingham Forest game, and they qualified for Europe, so it's a little different this year, I would have to subscribe to 5 different streaming services to watch every game. I'm not going to do that, obviously. I listen on the satellite radio, and that's good enough for me. But when does this stop now? When does this stop? The MLB package, and you got this, and you got that, and you got that. And to watch these games, whereas I grew up in a simple time, and it was a wonderful thing. You had a television, you had a TV antenna, and back home you could catch every Yankee game. You just flipped on Channel 11, WPIX, and you had Scooter Rizzuto, Frank Messer, Bill White were the announcers, and you watched the Yankee game. If you were a Mets fan, you tuned into Channel 9, WOR. You had Lindsey Nelson, Bob Murphy, Ralph Kiner. You listened to and watched the game on TV. And then you had the Rangers were on Channel 9. The Big Whistle, Bill Chadwick, and you had Jim Gordon. You could watch Ranger games. And other sports, you had Game of the Week on Channel 4, NBC. Joe Garagiola would announce. And all this stuff was a simple thing. All you needed was an antenna and a TV, and you could watch your games. And then cable TV came. And I get progress and everything. And then the money gets involved. And then the internet and the streaming. And more gets taken away. It's only a matter of time before there'll be no sports for free over the air on the TV. It's just a matter of time. And in 1961, Congress passed the Sports Broadcasting Act. And you can look this up. And it's all backfired now because they didn't have a time machine. They couldn't see cable coming. First cable television came, and then, of course, the internet and the streaming and all that. And what the act was the NFL had a monopoly, and they would be free from antitrust acts as long as they kind of kept all the games for free on local television. And now this is backfired because they couldn't predict what it is. And the original intent was to ensure that the sponsored telecasting or the free over the air with an antenna would always remain. And now they've taken that and they've skewed it. And now they're able to sell these packages to all these streaming services. And it's not just 1 or 2. Now you have to subscribe to the big internet machine to get the games on Thursday night. And it's part of your package. And it forces the fans, before you know it, you're paying for all these multiple subscriptions. And that wasn't the original intent of the Sports Broadcasting Act. So now, just this week, they opened the investigation, the FCC, and they're going to look at the 1961 Broadcasting Act and how it's been taken advantage of and is now really destroying the consumer because they have to subscribe to all these services, and it's very expensive. So once more, the working person, a simple pleasure is taken away, and maybe you have an extra $400, $500, and you subscribe to one of these streaming services to watch your favorite teams, and maybe you get some other entertainment out of it. But when you have to go to 4 different streaming services to catch all the games, if you're a sports fanatic, you're also broke. And it just seems like everything gets chiseled away. And as a test, luckily I enjoy sports on the radio, and I've talked about my love of radio and how much I love radio, and that's a great thing. And I don't mind listening to a baseball game with it on in the background. It's fine. I can envision the game in my head. I enjoy baseball on the radio. I enjoy football on the radio. It doesn't bother me. A lot of folks don't want to do that. It's boring, whatever. Very inexpensive. I think it's less than $10 a month, and I get these games. But last night, just as an experiment during the Yankee game, I fired up one of my ham radios that has shortwave and general band coverage. And I fired that radio up, and I don't have big elaborate antennas. If I had outside antennas, the writing command center is an apartment, so it's very hard to get proper antennas. But I have these indoor antennas, and I make do with what I have. Luckily, like I said many times, I live by myself. Otherwise, people would choke themselves on all the wires. I know where the booby traps are. But I tuned into AM radio, medium wave, long wave, and I tuned in the local New York City station that carried the Yankee game. And I was able to tune it in very, very loud and clear here last night in Central Virginia. So I thought to myself, wow, I can still catch games on the radio. It's simple things. Simple thing like tuning in a ball game. Simple pleasure. So that made me feel a little bit better. But, the days are coming when there will not be any free sports on TV. They'll force, unless they stop this, they'll force all these games and all these sports to where you have to have the streaming services. Now, coming up is the NFL draft. And I lived in a time when my buddy Harry and I and our friends, Jet fans, Giant fans, we jump on the train, New Jersey Transit, go over to Midtown, and they had the draft there at the Felt Forum. And it was a whole different thing. It was a small little venue, and you'd have some Eagle fans come up from Philly, and you'd have Giant fans and Jet fans, and maybe a smattering of Buffalo Bill fans would come down from upstate New York. And, of course, the Patriot fans would make their way down from New England across Connecticut, and we'd harass them. There's a common unity between all NFL fans that we all gang up and root against the Patriots. It's just the way it is. And it was not a grand spectacle. They'd announce these guys, and it'd be a draft. You could buy a beer, get a soda, get a hot dog, bag of chips, whatever. And they had some tables up in the front. Now, the NFL draft has turned into this 3-day grand extravaganza. Once more, taking things to the extreme. And I guess it's only available on the one of the pay channels. I don't know. And there you go. So you could probably listen to it on the radio, on the NFL, on the satellite radio. But once more, any opportunity, and hey, that's great. You're making all this money and everything. And if you like that, that's fantastic. But they make everything to the extreme, and just the simple things are taken away. You can't just tune in. You can't just watch it. You don't have that service. You don't have that channel. You got to pay for this, pay for that. It's just sad. It's very sad that everything gets taken away from the working people, the people that make things tick. And I talk about home a lot, and talk about New Jersey, and I talk about Patterson, and I write about it. And people say, oh, Paul, you traveled so many places and so many years, and now you live here, you must be homesick. I do get homesick. I love New Jersey, and it gets a bad rap and all that, but I've got to do a Jersey podcast. But more than that, I find myself as of late being time sick more than homesick. And I mean time sick for these times that were so much simpler and so much, in many ways, more pleasurable and less expensive. That's for sure, too. And I'm not anti-technology. I'm using technology right now. And I'm not. I know that things can't stay the way they are. And that's part of the world progressing. God allows knowledge in this world for us to expand and get better, and hopefully. But why does it always have to go to the extreme and end up being something that's just so expensive? And for me, that takes the pleasure out of it. It really, really does. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope the FCC and the DOJ is able to step in here. And so much of this world nowadays is bluster and all this saber rattling, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and they're going to do this, and then nothing ever happens. And the money wins out, and they get their way anyway. But for me, I just don't see football, NFL, being what it used to be. It's lost so much appeal to me. And now, I mean, if they take away the free games and everything, I probably just won't even tune in anymore and just listen on the radio on occasion. But anyway, so that wasn't too bad. I feel so much better. I got that all off my chest. Right? It wasn't that bad, guys, was it? Right? Anyway, so look it up. That's the 1961 Broadcasting Act and how it's backfired. So anyway, hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey. And hey, an upcoming podcast, we hope to get Frankie T back to talk about the NFL, and we can rant together. I have a suggestion from a listener, and I've been deep diving into the music of Alison Sudol, also known as A Fine Frenzy. Have one more little EP to go through. It's only 5-6 tracks maybe, and I just have to listen to that. And I've listened to her whole collection of recordings, and that was a suggestion from a listener for a rated podcast, and I enjoyed the music. And I have some comments on it, and I think I'm going to do a rated series on the music of A Fine Frenzy, a.k.a. Alison Sudol. So that will be coming up in an upcoming podcast, and maybe next week. We'll see how this week coming up goes. And I keep saying I'm going to take some time off, and one of these days I will, but... So if there's not a podcast, Paulie is somewhere taking it easy. But at any rate, hey, please be kind. Don't rant unless it's about streaming and season rushing. Be gentle. Be very tolerant. Remember, kindness is for free. Spread it around as much as you can. It can only make this world a better place. And I hope you enjoyed my little rant. Trying to keep my podcasts a little leaner on time as of late to save some of my space here. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Thank you so much. So this is like those Marvel movies where you gotta watch the movie to the end, So they had the Artemis thing, the rocket ship went around the moon. So it reminded me of an old story. So they had this rocket ship, and they went to these astronauts, right? And there's Larry, and there's Joe, and there's Bill, and there's Ted. And they say, hey, we're going to do a mission to Mars here. We got the technology. We got this fantastic rocket ship, and we're going to fly around Mars and then come back to Earth. And we're going to be the first country to do it. USA has this technology. We're going to surprise the world. So these guys, even though we got super whiz-bang propulsion and we can do this impossible trip, it's still going to take 2 years. You guys are going to be up there for 2 years in outer space. So we realized it could get a little monotonous. So we've allowed you, each of you, Ted, Bill, Joe, and Larry, 150 pounds of cargo, extra cargo that you can bring along and, help pass the time. So they go to Ted, and Ted says, oh, yeah, hey, I want these books, 150 pounds of this book, this, blah, 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 blah. And it's all languages. You see, Ted's going to learn all these languages of the world. Then they go to Bill. And Bill says, well, my wife only weighs 120 pounds. Can I bring my wife? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. So Bill does that. Joe wants to bring 150 pounds of specialized cameras. He's going to take pictures, and he's going to take pictures out the window of the spaceship and pictures when he goes on his spacewalks and all these things. I'm going to take the most fantastic pictures ever taken in the history of the world. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And they go to Larry. And Larry's just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey. He used to work in a warehouse, and he joined the military late in his life. And he made it all the way to the astronaut program. So they say, Larry, what do you want? He says, I want 150 pounds of the best Cuban cigars. So they're like, huh? Okay. So they send him up in space with all their cargo, and they fly all around. They go around to Mars, and they 2 years comes and the space flight goes fantastic, like this Artemis thing, and they have the splashdown in the ocean, and they have the astronauts, they're getting them out of the space capsule, and everybody's cheering and clapping, and they set up a podium, and Ted comes out first, and Ted walks up to the microphone, and he starts speaking, and first he speaks in German, then he speaks in Spanish, then he speaks in Italian, then he speaks Hebrew and Latin and Iceland, native languages, all these languages, and people are like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And then Bill pops out with his wife with a baby. Their first baby born in outer space is fantastic. So then Joe comes, and Joe's got his cameras, and he comes up to the microphone. He says, I took a picture of aliens. Wait till you see these pictures, folks. Aliens are real, and I took pictures of the spaceships, and my fantastic pictures. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is history making. Where's Larry? Nobody can find Larry, and they're looking in the spaceship, and Ted, who was kind of like the leader of the flight, he was like, Larry's not in good shape. They're like, what? Finally, Larry comes running out of the space capsule, and his eyes are bugging out of his head, and he's looking around, and he's frantic, and he gets up to the microphone. He says, please, please, please tell me that one of you has a match. Hey, thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.